Our first session today is entitled, There's a Lot More to AI Than LLMs. We're joined by Martin Kon, President and COO of Cohere Canada. Cohere is an independent, data security-focused enterprise AI company with offices in Toronto, San Francisco, London, and New York. The company builds enterprise-grade frontier AI models to solve real-world business challenges. And this session will be moderated by Mike Butcher, editor-at-large at TechCrunch UK. Welcome.
Hello. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Expand North Star and to GITEX Global. It's a pleasure to be here again. I was here last year and had a great time and was delighted to be asked to come back and do a little bit of some panel moderation. Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. We're based in San Francisco. I'm based in London. And it's my pleasure to be interviewing Martin Kon, who's the president of Cohere, which is it's a great word, isn't it? Cohere, brilliant name for a company.
It's very coherent.
Exactly. And I think, obviously, on the lips of everybody at GITEX and Expand North Star this week is artificial intelligence, and obviously the words OpenAI and all of the foundational models, etc., are always trotted out. But rarely do we talk about how it's going to change business. We talk about chatbots all the time. We talk about, people interrogating. Even people are using chatbots to, give them advice on their relationships and hilarious things like that. But how is it going to change business? It's only really going to change business with really deep integration with the enterprise. And the title of our panel here to talk about is, there's more to AI than LLMs, is sort of signifying that idea that just chatbots isn't going to move the needle for us, in the world in the economy, effectively. Tell us a little bit about where Cohere is positioned in that conversation about AI right now.
Yeah. Well, first, thanks for having me. I wasn't here last year, so I'm delighted to be here this year, and certainly hope I get a return invite. So you mentioned a lot of things in there, and I'll start with just the gravity or the magnitude of change. So unfortunately, I've been around for quite a long time.
I think fortunately.
I've been working for about 31 years now, and what we're seeing now, the change with generative AI, is, in my mind, very clearly the biggest disruption and transformation in the human-computer interface since May 1993, when the Mosaic browser came out. And that changed everything. Anyone here who remembers life before the internet and after the internet, we couldn't even think about it right now. We use the internet without even thinking about it. And going forward, the interface that we as humans will want to have with machines, with computers, will be language, just like now. We want to just converse with computers. And so the change will be absolutely profound. But as with any technical change, significant technical change, we inevitably massively overestimate the near-term impact and massively underestimate the long-term impact. And so we're in a bit of a sort of hype cycle where everyone thinks life should have completely changed upside down in the last year, but we haven't yet seen that. And so I think to your point, Mike, having a chatbot that can write a poem about your parakeet or write a limerick about your llama, that's cute. But that's not creating business value, and that's what we're focused on. And so we are really the only independent frontier model provider. There are perhaps 5 companies in the world with the talent, the ML talent, to build state-of-the-art foundational models, not train on someone else's, and the other 4 have taken between 86 and 100% of their funding from their cloud provider, in exchange for being exclusive to that cloud provider. OpenAI
You're
could
talking
only
about
be used on
OpenAI,
Azure.
Microsoft Azure, yeah.
Yeah, Anthropic with AWS or Google.
Yeah.
We're available on every cloud. We're available VPC all the way to on-prem.
But isn't that because these foundational models require access to that compute? So where's your compute coming from, and how are you working with companies on that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, the short answer is yes, you need that. We've raised just shy of $1 billion. It's eye-watering how much the training compute costs. But the difference is, you mentioned as well, Mike, we do not have a cash-burning consumer chatbot, and we never will. If you're serving 300 million free users, I know this from my time as CFO of YouTube, it's extremely expensive. And so that's why I've read the headlines. I don't know the veracity, but some of our competitors say that they're going to lose $5 billion, growing to $14 billion. Another one said they're losing $2 billion. That's primarily for inference. That's primarily for the serving costs of a consumer chatbot or a serving costs of serving enterprise through an API, where you have a combination of compute and your models. We just simply don't do that because we focus only on the enterprise. And so most of what we do actually is where companies care about data privacy and data security. They don't want to send their data through an API. They want to keep it in their environment. So we deploy privately in their data environment, which means we don't pay for the inference compute. We do need cash, of course, for the pre-training, and we have a significant, significant supercomputers with the latest NVIDIA chips. NVIDIA's been a big investor. Now so has AMD. So we're not just cloud agnostic, we're hardware agnostic.
Now, I'm sure the conversation in many boardrooms around the planet is that someone's read an article about open source AI, and they say, someone in the boardroom says, why don't we just download some of this open source software, like back in the days with Linux and Red Hat, etc. We'll download some open source. We can do this on-prem, or we can buy in some cloud compute, and we'll be able to do our own training, and off we go to the races. Who needs OpenAI foundational models? Everybody, it's back to the days of Linux. So just get some open source and off we go. What would you say to them? Like, for instance, could download Llama from Meta, for instance, or any one of the other open source outfits.
I mean, open source is great. There are many good uses for it. It's very symbiotic with proprietary models. I think the key thing to keep in mind is, do you want to use this to experiment and do some proofs of concept, or do you want to put it in production?
If you hold it like a little bit more.
Sorry, do you want to use things to create demos and evals and proofs of concept, or do you want to use it in production? For demos and evals, open source is great, but I think the idea that Gen AI has actual open source is a misnomer. Open source generally, like Linux, is a distributed group of researchers all collaborating organically to create something. That's not what Llama 3 is, for example. Llama 3 is a $1 trillion company which spent hundreds of millions or billions of dollars to train a series of models that they're deciding to give away for free for now. Who knows if Llama 4 comes out, if it's cheaper, if it's free, or if they charge for it, or who knows. The other thing which is very important, many people might not realize, we have a friend from Hugging Face here, when you download the weights of Llama 3 from an online repo like Hugging Face, you agree in the terms of service to indemnify Meta for all liability. You assume all the liability for the data that's in that model, and they won't tell you what data is in the model, which means if there's a copyright lawsuit, you're on the hook. We, on the other hand...
That's pretty significant.
It's massively significant. It means that most enterprises simply cannot use it in production, certainly not banks, etc. We, on the other hand, have copyright assurance. We know where all our data comes from. We have very robust data policies. We indemnify our customers. As one example, we power everything Oracle does, Fusion, NetSuite, their Gen AI service. Larry Ellison and Safra wouldn't allow that unless they were 100% confident in the enterprise grade of what we do. And so that's why proprietary models are still going to be, for production, essential. The other ones are proprietary but only available through API on a specific cloud because their parent wants you to buy more cloud. We're the only one that combines on-prem with proprietary models. The other thing, which is putting it in layperson's terms, because I'm a layperson, when you take a model like a Llama or a GPT-4o, it's baked. Like, the model's done. You can decide what color sprinkles you want on it. You can fine-tune it a little bit, but you can't really change it much because it's already been baked. with us, because we create the models, we build the foundational models, we can go much further back in the baking process to customize models with and for our customers and partners. One concrete example, 2 weeks ago, Fujitsu, which is a major investor and a very deep partner of ours, released Takane. That's their proprietary LLM capability, powered by Cohere. We developed it for and with them, that blows everything else out of the water in every Japanese benchmark they care about. So when they go and compete with Hitachi, NEC, Accenture, whoever, everyone can say, I've got OpenAI, I've got Anthropic, I've got Cohere. They can say, we've got Takane, and 40 companies have reached out to them to say, we'd like to work with you because you have the best capabilities. That's also some of the discussions we're having here. Aramco has invested in us, STC has invested in us, Cisco, Salesforce, Oracle, both NVIDIA and AMD, SAP, etc.
What do you say to people who still, and I think quite validly, talk about the accuracy of neural networks of LLMs? And a lot of, because there is still a problem with hallucination. Now, hallucination might not matter much when, I'm just wandering around talking to a chatbot about how to lose weight or something. But when it's in the enterprise and this stuff needs to be accurate, what is the answer in the enterprise setting about hallucination, and how do you sort of build it out or try and mitigate the potential for that to happen?
Yeah, it's a great question, Mike, and I think you've hit the nail on the head. The difference between being a consumer company, 85% of OpenAI's revenue is from their subscription services like ChatGPT, only 15% from their API. And Google, my former employer, is a phenomenal consumer company or an enterprise company. And so the way that I like to put it is LLMs can be a little bit, I don't know how many Americans, Canadians are here who celebrate Thanksgiving, but I'm sure it's the same for any family holiday you have. You have that belligerent, annoying uncle who knows the answer to everything, except you never really know if he's right or wrong because he just speaks with equal conviction whatever he says. LLMs can be like that. They will hallucinate, and you don't really know when they are, because they're speaking with equal,
and they don't show their workings.
Yeah, but we do. And so there is something, I'm sure many people here have heard the term RAG, Retrieval Augmented Generation. That term was coined by Patrick Lewis, who is at Cohere. He was the lead author on the paper that introduced RAG to the world when he was at Meta. He leads that for us. And what that is Retrieval Augmented Generation. And so you don't want to stuff every fact into the parameters of a model, like a Jeopardy contestant or a Who Wants to Be a Millionaire contestant. Rather, you want to teach the models to be very, very good, like humans, at knowing where, when, and how to look for information they were not trained on. And that's important because A, it's far too inefficient to pack everything in. B, that information could have been updated 4 minutes ago and the model was trained 2 months ago. And C, a lot of that information in enterprise is extremely sensitive. And you don't want to put that in a model. You want to keep it safe where it resides, and only those people with authority are able to access it. And so we've really focused a lot on retrieval augmented generation, which means when we deploy inside a company's data environment, in their tenancy of Azure or on-prem or whatever is relevant for them, they can then search across an enormous range of internal data sources, just like we're used to doing with Google in the open world, retrieve that information, generate a response, and very importantly, cite where it's from.
Right.
So we have inline citations that if you say, what are our top 10 accounts in Dubai, it'll pull that from Salesforce, from a financial report, and it will cite where it's from, so it's up to date, it's accurate, and you can base your decisions on it. And so that's one of the things that we've really focused on, is the search and retrieval capabilities, which are complementary sets of models, embeddings, re-rankers, in addition to the generative models. And it's that combination that is powerful for enterprise.
I'd love to get your opinion, sort of moving on, riffing off that idea of the problem with hallucination. I'd love to hear your opinion on where we go next after LLMs, or if LLMs continue. In the UK, there's a startup called Unlikely AI, done by William Tunstall-Pedo, who was the guy behind the Alexa device from a startup called Evie. And he's now working on an AI startup called Unlikely AI, which uses a concept called neurosymbolic AI. Now, I won't get too geeky about this, but there is a debate about what are the limitations for LLMs going forward, and we've all seen those graphs, haven't we? Where ChatGPT 3 comes out and the graph goes up and to the right, and it looks amazing. Lots of other startups, Anthropic and others, come out with equally very good LLMs, but the graph is flattening out, isn't it? And we're throwing larger and larger models, larger and larger trillions of parameters and tokens, and compute at this stuff. But the graph is flattening a little bit, and it looks like to get to the next level, shall we say, the next step change. I mean, Oracle is talking about building nuclear power stations for the amount of compute and data centers we're going to need. What's your view about where we go next in the next, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years in that sense? And is that I presume Cohere is looking at that, planning that out right now in terms of where it's going to head in the future?
I think the question is, it depends where you want to go. If your leadership is chasing AGI, we want bigger, 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 fine. We're not doing that. All we care about is helping enterprises create business value. And as one example, if you have a 2 trillion parameter model, it is quite literally 20 times more expensive to serve than a 100 billion parameter model. And so you mentioned Oracle. We have 105 features built into Fusion, ERP, HCM, CX, NetSuite, all of their enterprise apps that are in 14,000 enterprises for Fusion, 27,000 for NetSuite, all powered by Cohere. And by the way, sometimes it's our smaller model, because it ends up, we have a command R, which is smaller, more efficient, and R+, which is bigger and more performant. But the point is, what is going to be the right thing for creating business value? And these sort of academic evals are generic, generally consumer-focused chatbots. So where we're going with it, and our whole business has been architected on this from day one, is less around how can we make our public model, which we don't really have, better and better. How do we get to a bit of an asymptote of the capabilities? How do we help enterprises customize those for exactly what they want? The example of Tekane for Japanese. You can imagine what Aramco would be interested in doing. The example of Oracle. Every one of those 105 features was slightly differently optimized to be ideal at exactly that one thing. You can't do that with a consumer chatbot, because you have to anticipate what 200 million people want it for. But it's different for enterprise. And so where we're going is continuing to improve on our models. We're doing mixture of experts, our Command 3 generations training as we speak. And they will get more and more performant, but they will also get more efficient. And we will lean in more and more to customizing with our most important partners and customers to enable them to create real business value and roll out in production. And that's, I think, the real difference here, because there is a cost trade-off, with raw performance, and there's also the idea of customizing it for your use cases rather than just relying on some general model. And so that's always been our focus for enterprise. And by the way,
so you're saying the graph doesn't really apply in the same way in enterprise as it does to these foundational consumer models?
I mean, you do need to have a very performant model, but then let me back up and say it a different way. People here use PowerPoint, right? It's pretty good, it's great, but so does your competitor. So it gives you zero competitive advantage. And so there will be standard tools that we'll all use. We at Cohere, we happen to use Google. We'll use Google's AI capabilities built into Google Meets, built into Google Docs, just like spell check today or autocomplete. We'll use Oracle's capabilities. We have NetSuite and so on. But the proprietary capabilities of an enterprise, you don't want to use a generic chatbot because it gives you zero differentiation against your competitors. It gives you zero alpha. And so that tip of the hierarchy of needs, where a bank wants to have their own capabilities to do wealth management, or an insurance company wants to have their own capabilities to do claims adjusting, that's where they want to have their own LLM capability, powered by Cohere, which is different to embedded to their competitors. And a generic model is never going to give you that.
And finally, Well, just two quick last points. Firstly, in earlier this year, you raised a $500 million round, Series D. Do you think you're going to raise again?
Well, a wise man once told me a startup's always raising, so it's an ongoing thing. We're very happy with our investor base. It's harder. It's going to sound strange. It is much harder to take money from real investors rather than from your cloud provider. We wanted to stay away from that and stay independent so that our customers really know that we're going to do the best things for them. And that's why we have a lot of strategic investors, like I mentioned, who want to build us into their tech, and financial investors who want a good return. So I think the short answer is yes, it's a capital-intensive business, but our capital efficiency is structurally different from the others because we're not spending billions and billions and billions on inference for free consumer models or very low margin API calls. We are deploying in our customers' own data environment on top of their own infrastructure, which is better for them for data privacy and better for us in terms of our gross margins.
Well, it will be very interesting if we have this conversation again in a year's time, perhaps at Expand All Star, to see whether or not you did raise another round, or what happened next in enterprise AI, because it's a fascinating area, and I guess the old phrase "you ain't seen nothing yet" probably applies in this sector. But for now, Martin Kon from Cohere, thanks very much for coming to Expand All Star, and from me, Mike Butcher from TechCrunch. See you later.
Thanks, Mike.